Okay.
It responded.
Oh, it just got started. We'll see. All right, everyone, I'm going to go ahead and get this meeting called to order. So we'll start with the first item on our agenda here, which is approval of the minutes. Do I see a motion to approve the minutes? See a motion from Emma. Do I see a second? Oh, second from Ethan. Perfect. All right, and is there anyone who objects to moving to a vote on approval of the minutes for our cycle 10 meeting? All right, seeing none, we will get that vote launched on the channel. This will be the first attendance vote of the evening. All right, that poll is now launched in the channel. Vote yes if you do approve the minutes, no if you object to anything within the minutes, and abstain to stay out of the discussion. I'll let this vote run for about another minute and a half. A reminder that our quorum is 29 for this evening.
Could Jason Daly and Mohammed Hassan Tariq come to the front?
I know, but like, since like you're not here for me, because I like to know that. Right. But it's quite a technical method. I would make it wait that. You said true. It is. I'll try and figure it out. And I'll put it to you. Yeah.
All right, has anyone not voted in this matter that has the ability to do so or having any technical issues? Anyone else with issues in terms of voting? All right, seeing none, we'll move to close this vote. And with a vote of 32 in the affirmative, 0 in the negative, and 0 abstentions, this legislation passes unanimously. All right, so now we'll move on to the next item on our agenda, which is a guest speakership from our student body president, Sadie Williams, and Madison Orange, the student senate coordinator. And y'all will have 10 minutes. And yeah, we can go ahead and give an intro round of applause if we want.
Okay, so we just did this because we could have put it in an officer report, but this was easier, so that way we didn't have to time extension or anything like that. And so we just had a couple announcements related to like Senate funding / hourlies and things like that. Just wanted to confirm them or like just relay them to you all. And so the first is it was presented in fee as well, but reconfirming with you all the student senate exec positions at bar 29 are going to be at 20 moving forward for all roles. And so that's president, vice president, chief of staff, and treasurer, as well as the graduate student body president, which is already, yeah, this whole thing. Yeah. We're just adjusting this down to 20. So like a long time ago, there was an HR exemption for those roles. But like it doesn't reasonable, like that exemption is kind of like getting retracted. And then also with the addition of the speaker of the Senate, the president and vice presidents are going to be like splitting their duties out, and the speaker is going to be taking up some duties as well as like So it just kind of disperses all the duties. So it just makes sense, basically. So like those positions are going to be 20 moving forward because like there's a division of labor. So they'll actually only be working 20 hours too. So it's not like they're going to be paid less for the same jobs. It'll be split out. But I wanted to be sure to communicate that transparently to all of you as well. And then we'll have questions after this if you have any. We'd love to share them. But the reason it's not getting voted on or anything is because like it was presented in fee, like with most of that. And then also it's an HR thing. So it's like we physically can't pay them over 20 starting this year too. So we're starting this next fiscal year. So presenting that to all of you and letting you know. And then Madison's going to cover some updates and just like generally like talking about the reserve and like what that looks like moving forward. The reason for that is because like often what happens in Student Senate is like whenever we get to this point, everyone kind of starts checking out and they can start acting like, oh, like next year's not my problem. But the fact of the matter is it's like, even though some of us aren't going to be here next year, like Student Senate is important. And it's important to start having conversations of how our actions this year are going to affect next year positively and just realistically in things. And so we wanted to start laying the foundation now of like, start thinking forwardly of like, here's what Student Senate is going to look like next year. Here's what we need to keep an eye out on for those of you returning. Here are things that keep in mind as we move forward. Because none of us live in a bubble, you know, like all the choices that we make now are going to affect next year's administration, next year's senators, next year's students. So Madison's going to touch a little bit on the reserve and then we'll have time for questions too.
I mean, I could use that, but
Oh, yeah, that's true. Sorry.
it's okay. I'll just use it. So like Cindy was saying, along with like the fee process, obviously you all saw it when you voted on it. Part of that was a reduction in Student Senate's fee. And so with that, what happened was that all of block funding, this might be like, again, everything you've heard before, all of block funding is going to be funded by that fee, which then means Wednesday night funding and all of your line item funding, things like that are going to be funded out of the reserve account, which we've talked about a few times this academic year, I guess. In your constitution, you have to have at least $50,000 in that account at any given time. And so with that, plus the $100,000 that has been decided on to be the allocation for the combination of the unallocated and line item funding, that means we do need to like make sure that it's for like the rest of this semester and going into next academic year, we're just paying attention to that so that you're not getting to a point where there's nothing left in the reserve. The reason we're digging into the reserve and took that cut is because when we're going through that process, we're making a lot of other departments, once they get to a certain point in their reserve, like lower that as well. So we're just trying to make sure that you all are following those same guidelines you're giving other departments and organizations. So, yeah. You have anything to add to that?
I think so.
Okay.
But yeah, basically, we're just trying to like make sure we're being fiscally responsible for the money that we have, which means that the reserve is kind of like allocated out for next year and things. I just wanted to like present that to you all. What questions do you all have on either?
Do we have any questions on the floor? Oh, question back here from David. Can we get a mic or a catch box, either or? It's on currently.
So how much money do we have then in the unallocated reserve?
So the unallocated account right now, Turner, what is that, like 17,000 that's remaining? That doesn't include what's going to be voted on tonight. So that's what's left for this academic year. In terms of the reserve account for next academic year, that we could go over that a little bit more like in detail if you wanted to meet one-on-one with that, like after spring break. The real issue with like giving exact numbers is that all of the Student Senate accounts all at the end of the year like collapse into each other. So if there's any accounts that went into the negative, those that are helped with like the reserve and all the rest of the unallocated accounts. So by the end of the year, we'd be able to, in like the beginning of next academic year, we'd be able to give a better picture of what's left in there. But just like the way that things are going, it is going to be to a point where Senate is going to have to obviously come in for an increase in fee so that there is money to spend on student groups to give line and Wednesday night funding.
I can provide some background on that too. So for those of you who don't know, so the Student Senate fee right now is like sitting at about like $16. The amount that we're actually allocating out every single year from like our student organization fee is closer to about like $20 to $21 worth of fee. So that extra like dollars, like that $4 or $5 in between there, that's all coming from a reserve on an annual basis. So that's been happening for the past 3 fiscal years. And so next year, based off of like the best projections that we can do at this time, student Senate's gonna need to come in for at least a like $3.50 increase, although most likely more. And that would be to maintain operations at this current level. And so, yeah.
Any other questions? David, did you have a follow-up? I saw you reach for the
No, I
mic.
was just saying thank you to them.
Oh, perfect. Any other questions on the floor for our guest speakers? All right, seeing none, thank y'all for your time and update. And shall we move right into your officer report, Sadie? Yeah, perfect. All right, so you will have a minute and a half.
So the bulk of what I want to talk about in my officer report, you'll see it next week, but I want to prep you all in advance. So something that we have ran into this year that's been tougher, and I think that you'll have seen, is in the actual constitution as it stands, a lot of the executive staff duties are pretty vague. And then there's also some roles on the executive staff that we don't functionally have under there anymore. And so a project that we've been undertaking in process of turnover and preparing for that is basically codifying the individual duties of the executive staff and also outlining a timeline within the executive staff roles. So that way, like the student senate and the executive staff themselves would be able to better benefit from a clear guideline of what each role is supposed to be doing, when they're supposed to be doing it. You'll all be able to hold them accountable and see like more like actual items, things. And then on the executive staff end as well, like they'll be able to see what like they need to do on an annual basis, as opposed to just like relying on a turnover process that historically isn't the most helpful. We're working on that too, but which should be good. And then also for executive staff, for like the chief of staff, as well as the president and vice president, to better hold everyone accountable too. And so my goal is to get that bill in for next cycle. It's basically just codifying everything that people already do. It's just putting it down on paper. So that way, like, we don't have to worry about like, you know, if there is like a complete turnover in the student senate, about all of that knowledge getting lost and things. Just making sure that we're on track there. Also going to be looking at readdressing advisory boards and coordinating those more in conjunction with the actual fee entities themselves. We tried in the fall and I'm going to try again. So, but this time we're going to coordinate with the fees themselves because all of them are going to look a little bit different, and putting those more into the fee entities as well. And then mainly just a very hefty and thorough and super fun for the incoming people turnover process to make sure everyone's prepped.
Can I get a motion to extend speakers time
Does anyone have questions?
and/or? Or was that the
Yeah.
finality?
That's kind of it.
Or weren't you also giving an update on the PD for chief of staff?
Oh, it's extended till tomorrow. So if you want to apply for chief of staff, it's extended till tomorrow.
All right, I did see a question on the floor from Farzad. Do you want to extend speakers time or? Oh, a motion? All right. Any other questions on the floor for the student body president? All right, seeing none. Thank you for your officer report. All right. Well, Sadie, can you take the chair? This is the first time in a few years that this has happened in Senate, but for like the chair of the assembly, it's gone from the vice president to the chief of staff to the senior senator to the president. And we finally made it down to the final person on the line of succession here.
Exactly.
Yes. All right, ready? Yep. Perfect. All right, for my officer report this cycle, I will be holding a student senator training on the 28th of March from 5:30 to 7:30 p.m. in Alderson Auditorium. This training will be geared towards current senators and senators who are running in the student senate elections, really anyone running in the student senate elections. So they can learn about the responsibilities of being a student senator, how the Students' Assembly operates with its councils, and then how they can make the most of their time in student senate through those positions. And so I will give further updates in regards to that through the teams and the listserv, but hold the date of the 28th of March if you're interested on that. I'll be scheduling joint senate. Currently, we're looking at the dates for the 26th of April and the 3rd of May for that transition meeting to happen. About a week or so after the election occurs. I'll provide further updates on that as we get closer to like the actual joint Senate meeting. We have our meeting with the chancellor on the Monday after spring break. If you have any ideas about what we should discuss, please email either Sadie or I. Currently, we're going to be covering recycling, mental health resources on campus, and university messaging to students, an issue that we've worked with the provost office consistently on throughout the year. For my next one, the University Senate will meet on the 30th of March for its monthly meeting. You'll get more details to come on that when they do send the agenda. At our last meeting, quorum was not met for the University Senate, so they couldn't proceed with their business from that meeting. And then finally, the legislative deadline, I put this in my email, but just so everyone has it on their radar. The legislative deadline will be this next Friday at 5 p.m. So if you have any writing that you would like to do over the spring break, feel free to get that submitted through the Rock Chalk Central link I provided in the email. Any questions?
Okay.
Yeah.
Sounds
Thank
good.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, next item on our agenda we have is the officer report from our graduate student body president, Holly Hall.
Okay, so we had the graduate student spring reception on the 23rd of February from 4 to 6 p.m. It was really good. We had about 150 to 200 graduate students show up to that in the Spencer Museum and create graduate student community. So that was great. The University Senate Executive Committee, Danae's on that with me. We met all the 4 candidates for the Dean of Libraries, and we sent our recommendation to the administration on, we kind of like do a ranking kind of scale for that. The Graduate Student Advisory Board met on March 1st, and we discussed emergency safety management in the light of the active shooter at Michigan State University. EB2 visas for international students, the proposed healthcare increase for next year, and the passage of the required campus fee package. Sadie and Alessia and I also met with Dr. Durham on March 2nd to give our updates about the fee package passing, etc. And on February 28th, the University Senate Executive Committee met, but we didn't really do much. We only met for about half an hour. And on February 24th, Sadie, Alessia and I met with the provost, and we discussed kind of the same things that we discussed with GSAB, emergency safety management, accessibility issues with the new way the website is laid out. It's kind of like a master plan where all of the websites for any department is laid out in the same way. And the things on the top that used to have like Blackboard and your email and sorry.
You can
Finish. Okay, are not there anymore, and so it was brought up to me that it's an accessibility issue. I had the ADA office look into it, and also looked into it with IT, and the Student Access Center is going to be reaching out to all students registered with them to make sure that they, you know, have the resources that they need. That's it.
Thank you very much for that, Holly. Any questions for our graduate student body president? All right, seeing none, you are excused. All right, so next we have an officer report from our treasurer, Turner Seals. Huh? Oh, I didn't know.
Supposed to be like.
Oh, I mean, feel free. Would you need additional time?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I guess I can do that over here. Actually, I'll do that in a second.
Okay.
Hey, everybody. Quick updates from me. So like Sadie and Madison said, we have around $17,000 left in the unallocated for this year. So that includes what's being funded tonight and then the next 2 cycles. So we've done a really good job about spending that down. The line and block funding bills are going to be presented next cycle. As some of you may have seen, there's been a little bit of feedback that we've gotten regarding allocations. I just wanted to cover the reasoning on how we made our decisions. There were $80,000 of potential funding we're allowed to give out next year. So we had a max to give out $80,000, and we had over $220,000 in asks from groups. So obviously that's, you know, you can't make anyone happy really there. So the strategy that we used was trying to fund events that were happening early on in the semester. So I don't know if how many of you guys were here early on the semester, but all the senators kind of have to learn the process, and so does the treasurer over there. it's kind of just a learn as you go process. So our thoughts were that if we could line fund, some of the events that are early on in the semester, it kind of help with that transition and allow for like an easier start to the year. So that was our attempt. But those are going to be presented next Wednesday, or not next Wednesday, that's spring break, 2 Wednesdays from now. And groups will have, sorry.
Can I get a motion to extend time? I see one from Holly for how long? 5 minutes, Blake, second. All right, and is there anyone who objects to extending speakers' time by 5 minutes? All right, seeing none, time is extended.
Cool. So yeah, overall, that's just groups are gonna be able to come and advocate for more funding, probably. So finance council members, just be ready for that. Potentially same with block. Over EOF, so Zachariah was the chair of EOF, but he is currently not here, so I have been instructed to
I tried the link and it looks like it won't open in the current file format.
That sucks.
Yeah,
But
but feel free to continue speaking on it if you need to.
well, I can send the actual allocations out later at this time, but overall, this is what Zachariah has instructed me to tell everyone. So every group on EOF got an increase compared to last year, especially departments that rely on funding for recruitment purposes. So, groups giving scholarships to incoming students, that sort of thing. They all got increased. It wasn't a very controversial process. I think we had more funding to allocate, so it was easier to, help these groups that really need this funding. He also stated that everyone got proportional raises. Almost everyone returned to F121 levels, if not higher. And that's all I got.
Perfect. Any questions for our treasurer? All right, seeing none, thank you very much, Turner.
Thanks, guys.
All right. And lastly, here for our officer report, we have our government relations director, Danae Estabine. And you had a presentation that you emailed me? Okay. The PDF. Correct.
Yeah, I sent 2 versions, so whichever. I sent PDF and then I also I just shared it.
Okay. All right, so if you click that on the assembly channel now, it should be available for you. If you go to Teams.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And then officer report.
Okay. And I had more pictures, but they're being difficult and not loading. So I apologize for the blandness of the presentation.
Oh, and about how much time will you need?
5 minutes.
5 minutes. Is the chamber okay? Does anyone object to 5 minutes for the government relations director report? All right, seeing none, your time's set at 5 minutes.
Okay, so I'm just going to give an overview of our recent trip to DC for the Big 12 on the Hill conference. So Sunday, we first had our flight and we arrived in DC around 11. Then we just kind of hung out in the hotel until Baylor hosted a dinner reception, which started with just kind of introduction for what the week was going to look like, and then training by lobbyists from Arnold and Porter. And then we all, as a Big 12, went on a little tour of the National Mall and Memorial Parks. And then Monday, we got to the Capitol around 8:30. Baylor provided us with a light breakfast. We then had a little welcoming speech from Congressman Pete Sessions. And then they did kind of a little Big 12 scramble thing. So we were all scrambled up into a bunch of different groups. So I was in a group with people from other universities. I wasn't with any other KU people. And so then we all just went to different senator and representatives' offices. And Baylor specifically picked these offices for people who weren't from schools within the Big 12, so we could get our message out to the broader representatives. And then at 4 p.m. we had a meeting with Kansas Rep Estes. Tuesday, we again arrived at the Capitol around 8 a.m. We took a tour, which was of the Capitol, which was hosted by K-State, not K-State. It was hosted by Senator Moran's office. And that morning we were able to meet with Senator Moran, and we talked with him for a little bit, but we did take the Capitol tour with K-State. So it was a little Kansas tour of the Capitol. And then we just kind of went straight into meetings with different Kansas reps. We had, as you see, we had a meeting with Rep. LaTurner, Rep. Mann, Senator Marshall, and Senator Moran's office. And then later that evening, we went to dinner, which was hosted by Andrew Moore, who is a graduated student senator. Wednesday morning, a couple of us got up and we went and attended a Supreme Court hearing. And then we kind of had to walk out in the middle of that. So the Supreme Court justices definitely know KU's repping in DC because they all saw us stand up and walk out of that. And then we had a meeting with Rep. David's office at 10 a.m. And then we just had our flight back and came here and attended our different council meetings. And that's it. Oh, that's not it. So just to give you guys kind of overall summary, the senators and representatives were really great listeners, and they were just super receptive of all the concerns we have. They all took notes as we were speaking and like were engaged in the conversation, asking us questions, asking what was needed. And then also same with the legislative directors and legislative assistants. And we also got all their business cards, and they just, encouraged us and invited us to reach out to them if we have any more information later on that we want to give it to them, and just to like stay in contact for future and building relationships. And then we also just learned a lot in regards for planning Big 12 on the Hill next year, since we as KU will be the hosts of it. And so we saw kind of a lot, and our advisors all kind of talked together to see like, what's needed in planning for that. And
All right. Do we have any questions for our government relations director? I see one from Chris and then one from Blake. We currently only have about a minute on the floor, so should we extend time? Blake, 5 minutes. Do I see a second? Second from Roswell. All right. Is there anyone who objects to extending time by 5 minutes? All right. Seeing none, time is extended. Chris, do you have a mic currently, or let me? Oh, catch box. Perfect. All right. You can go ahead and
What was the Supreme Court session you attended?
it was New York versus New Jersey. That was the
Sick.
case.
Thank
Yeah, it was really interesting.
Yep.
All right, Blake.
Awesome. Well, first of all, I just wanted to thanks for being transparent with the trip. I appreciate that. My question comes and more specifically about the lobbying efforts that you guys had. I know you took a list of specific policy points that you were going to lobby about. What were kind of some of the more successful conversations you had with legislatures?
Successful as in, how would you?
As in like the topics you lobbied for?
Well, our topics were the same with all of them being like mental health and college affordability. So we just like kept that theme because that's what Baylor had planned for us. And then also like we agreed with that as well. I really personally, I felt like our meeting with Rep. LaTurner, that was personally my favorite, just because he really sat down and took the time with us. His assistant was like in the back saying like, we need to go, like your time's ended, like we need to go. But he sat with us there several minutes after like it was time for him to leave and just really talked with us. So I felt like I really enjoyed that one and saw how much he cared about students.
Awesome. May I ask a follow-up, please?
Anyone else on the floor with a question?
I have a question. I just also add that we had a lot of feedback on our like telehealth.
Mhm.
And most
Yeah.
of the representatives have been like, heard about what we were worried about. Or what we were
Yes.
ready for.
Yeah. To add on to what Turner was saying, Senator Marshall, since he's a doctor, that's something that he like mental health, something that he really cares about. And he's currently a sponsor like on a bill that's kind of circulating and starting to get published concerning that. And they are starting to like talk about telehealth. So us being there and like the report that we had and all the reports that Sadie compiled as well were really helpful for their documents in writing for, the future as they go forth in writing the bill.
Okay.
Yeah, you can go ahead with your follow-up, Blake.
Okay, so I know the main lobbying points were mental health and education, like affordability, college
Yeah.
affordability. I know there's a lot going on in DC. It talks about student loan debt forgiveness, and I didn't know if that was, as an issue that affects so many students at KU, if that was something
Yeah.
that you guys.
Yeah, that
had
was something that we
conversations
talked about. Primarily, like Turner and Sadie took they, led that portion of the conversation. Since they're really big finance people. Like Sadie prepared reports. She got reports from our administration and advisors that showed like a breakdown of how that impacts students to give those numbers to all of the representatives. She left those reports with each of them that gave a breakdown of it. And yeah, we did talk about that because you're right, there are big talks about that on the Hill right now. So that was also a big thing that the reps and senators had questions for us about.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you. Any other questions for our government relations director? All right, seeing none. Thank you very much, Danae. All right. Is there anyone? Oh, Sadie, do I have a motion? The consent agenda. Okay. Do I see a second to a motion to suspend rules to introduce replacements? I see a second from Blake. All right, and is there anyone who objects to moving to suspend the rules to acclimate replacement senators without the form? All right, seeing none, the rules are suspended. All right, and as it stands right now, who currently would like to be acclimated as a replacement senator?
I'm gonna have them both introduce themselves and their constituencies.
Lovely. And did we get that updated on the website list as well while we were getting that?
They updated with current information.
Amazing. All right, so you can go ahead and introduce yourselves. Feel free to come up or just introduce from your seat here.
Oh, I'll just do it from here.
Lovely.
Hello, everyone. My name is Mohammed Hassan Tariq, and I'm trying to be a replacement senator. Oh, and my constituency is school engineering.
Ah, lovely.
Is this on? All right. Jason Daly. I'm a graduate student and I'm a replacement senator. And I guess my constituency is just graduate students.
Okay.
Thank you.
And another one over here. Yeah. And feel free to introduce yourself on the catch box.
Hi, everybody. My name is Dakota Goza. I'm currently studying pre-nursing and I plan to go to KU for 2 years after.
Awesome. And what was your constituency?
Liberal arts freshman, sophomore.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. And so all of these seats are free in terms of like the information we know?
Yep. I
Brilliant.
tracked it and it was from a few cycles back.
Amazing. All right. Do we have a motion to acclimate the 3 new replacement senators? Motion from Holly, second from Jaden. All right. And is there anyone who opposes acclimating these replacement senators? All right. Seeing none, congratulations on your new seats. And can we have all of the new replacement senators come up here just so we can get your like name on the record and written and spelled correctly? All right. And so now moving forward, we'll be moving on to the next item on our agenda, which is the consent agenda. Do I see a motion? Oh, motion from Holly, second from Chris to approve the consent agenda, I assume. All right, lovely. All right, is there anyone who objects to moving towards a vote on the consent agenda? All right, seeing none, we will open that vote in the Students Assembly channel. All right, everyone, that vote is now posted in the Students Assembly channel. Do you approve the consent agenda? Yes, if you do. No, if you object to an item on the consent agenda, or abstain. A reminder that if you object to any item on the consent agenda, it would be objecting to the entire agenda. All right, is there anyone who has not yet voted on the consent agenda that has the ability to do so? All right, seeing none, I'll move to close this vote. Oh, I'm still seeing votes roll in, so I'll give another 30 seconds, but then we'll have to move on. Hey, Turner, can you come here? All right, last call on votes. Anyone who's not yet voted? All right, seeing none, this vote is now closed. And with a vote of 37 in the affirmative, 0 in the negative, and 0 abstentions, this motion passes unanimously. All right, and Turner, you have a motion? All right, second from Evan. All right, and is there anyone who objects to moving into committee of the whole? Could you state the purpose of the bill before we?
Yeah, it's a general funding bill, so $100.
Mm.
A
Yeah.
group got mixed up. They applied for line thinking that that was for like right now, but it got mixed up. They need like $100, so I figured we could just do committee of the whole.
Any objections? Wait for. Yeah. All right, so I'm not hearing any objections to moving into committee of the whole, so we can now formally enter committee of the whole. And you can go ahead and pull up the bill that you'd like to present. It should be right above one of our first votes. On the assembly channel, hit Teams, and then go up on the Students Assembly channel.
Sweet. Yeah, so Concrete Canoe wants $100. This is a typo. I'm sorry. But yeah, Concrete Canoe wants $100. Concrete Bowling Ball is housed within Concrete Canoe. Concrete Bowling Ball is real. So I didn't know that. Seems cool. But yeah, they just want $100. So
Yeah, and they haven't received their general funding for this year yet, have they?
don't believe so.
Okay, all right. I saw a motion from Holly and a second from Chris to move out of committee of the whole or. Oh, friendly amendment.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. We'll get that fixed out there. All right, motion from Blake to move out of committee of the whole. All right, so I'll take Holly's motion, your second, and then is there anyone who objects to moving out of committee of the whole with this legislation? All right, seeing none, we're out of committee of the whole. Do I see a motion to vote? I see a motion from Chris, a second from Kevin. All right, is there anyone who objects to moving towards a vote on this legislation? All right, seeing none, we'll get that placed in the assembly channel.
Can I also say something?
Sure.
Yeah, so in purpose and aim to be transparent, if any of you have questions about unallocated fund, line fund, anything, email my Senate Treasury email. More than happy to try and explain. I know it took me a long time to understand things and it's a weird funding process here, but I'm happy to sit down with any of you guys to try and explain it. I know there's a lot of misinformation or misunderstanding, so if you have any questions, just reach out to me. That's all I got. Yeah.
All right, so that's now been put into the Students Assembly channel. Do you approve Turner's Committee of the Whole bill? Yes, if you do approve the funding bill. No, if you do not, and abstain to stay out of the discussion. I'll give about 2 minutes for that vote to run. All right, is there anyone who has the ability to vote that has not yet been able to do so due to time or technology issues? All right, seeing none, I will look to close this vote. All right, and with a vote of 36 in the affirmative, 0 in the negative, and 0 abstentions, this motion clearly passes. All right, so moving on to the next item on our agenda. For the regular agenda, we have Bill 23-68, a bill to fund the University of Kansas Her Campus organization. All right, and Danae, will you be presenting that? Awesome. No. Why you lol?
Well, I can say that he talks about the comment, they kind of Jason and figure out what's there, what committees there or what else. So then you won't know.
Yeah, thank you.
It might be.
Well, not so while we're presenting, should be fine. All right, are y'all ready to go? All right. And about how much time do you think you'll need for the presentation? 7 minutes. Right. All right, calling back into order. Do we want to get the legislation up on there? It's Bill 68.
Yeah. And then, so pull up the bill, then the presentation?
Well,
Or-
both. Yeah.
Okay, because the presentation also gives a breakdown of the funding.
Okay.
Okay. Is the presentation,
Let me. Oh, is that the other presentation I got, or? I only have the officer report. Do you know if you emailed it to my personal email?
no, I didn't. Whatever.
Honestly, I feel like emails take a solid 18 years to send a union.
Yeah.
And then another 18 to receive them.
Oh, there it just got.
It is bad. It really. Why? I don't know. I feel like this part of the union is just like so like, honestly.
Do you need the Excel sheet too?
No.
If they, no, it is.
Okay.
No, literally, like we.
Well, do you want me to post it on here?
You're not.
They're cut from the outside world. I just thought it was my phone. I just didn't know if it was everyone experiencing it. So I was like, I really idea. I don't know what it is. I thought it worked like during. No, it's not. That's the thing. Yeah, no, that's fine.
Like, I felt connected to the rest of the world.
It's just this bottom little area. I don't know what it is.
Okay. Okay, so this bill is to fund the club Her Campus to host all campus formal for the entire University of Kansas. Okay, so, and I'll give it away to Madam President.
Oh, thank you, thank you. Okay, hi guys, I'm Dima. Like Danae said, I'm the president of Her Campus. I'm a senior this year. I've been president since my junior year. I've been involved with Her Campus all 4 years. So if you have any questions, I should have all the answers. But a little bit about Her Campus. So we're one of many chapters nationwide. So we like get instructions and things from nationals, but we're the #1 media site for college women by college women. So essentially we're an online magazine, and we have 3 other teams, which are on the next slide. So our members can join one of 3 teams. So like I mentioned, we have our writing team. Since Her Campus Media started as an online magazine, they write articles covering a variety of topics, typically like about campus life or just things that affect college women specifically. We have a social team. So we have a large social media following, like our Instagram's about like 2.3K. We have like Twitter, Facebook, Spotify, Pinterest. So all that is original content made by our members. They find sponsorships with like sometimes we'll promote like local businesses, we'll do like brand deals with brands that come through nationals that they provide us. And then we have an events team. So they plan our meeting activities because we meet once a week and we really focus on like bonding the members and having that community of college women, volunteer activities, fundraisers, and then obviously the formal that we're hoping to fund.
So here's the flyer. The date on it's wrong and there's an updated one. It's actually gonna be Friday, April 14th. And so why fund, a formal event for all of campus? Well, this is something that a lot of students have asked, to Her Campus to do for a long time. They've heard this from a lot of students across campus. Her Campus is the one thing that also Dima didn't mention, probably out of being humble, but Her Campus has the largest following out of all campus organizations. They have more funding than like the student unions, Silk, like all the main even like campus run social medias. So they have a really big following. And so they've gotten this request from like a lot of students as this is something that they want to do because, you know, they see a lot of times like frats and sororities have formals, but that's like secluded to just a certain population of students on campus. And so this would give students an opportunity that they would have never had without this to be able to attend an event like this. And so it's just good for campus morale, providing, you know, just a fun event that everyone can be a part of. And so the request is to fund for decorations and KU dining services. And then something to go off of the decoration. So I'm currently working with Sarah Bowman, she's the director of Silk, to create like a shared organizations storage space closet, because right now different campus organizations, they can request storage space for their club, but then those items in that storage is just for that club. And so right now I'm working with her to create, you know, like a shared space where all of these resources can go for everyone to use, because a lot of the times is like in Senate, we're funding different items that are just like being refunded. And so that's just extra spend. That's just being wasted on the same items that can just easily be shared. So these decorations won't be like her campus's items. You can think of it as like an all campus, all KU resources for them to use. And so here's a breakdown of the cost for like the decorations, the dining services, DJ services. And so then there's the total. And we also have an Excel sheet that we showed to finance last week that has a breakdown of, because like those are very specific amounts, because we have picked out like every single decoration, the amount that we'd be ordering, their unit price, the cost for like all the quantity, as well as the same for the catering services, the 2 different hors d'oeuvres that we'll be offering, the brownies and the water and lemonade, and then just like the general catering costs. So that's all for the presentation. If anyone has any questions.
Thank you very much for that, Danae. Are there any questions on the floor? I see a question from Chris. Oh, a motion? Motion to, wait, did you say question or motion, Chris?
Motion,
Oh, to vote?
suspend the rules.
Oh, to suspend the rules?
I move to suspend the 1,500 rule, the decorations rule, and the social function rule.
Yes, all right, thank you. Second from Kevin, I see on that. And is there anyone who objects to suspending the rules to allow this bill to be funded at its full ask? All right, seeing none, that funding rule is suspended. All right, and now, are there any other questions on the floor for the speaker? I see a motion from Holly to vote, and I see a second from Vander. All right, is there anyone who objects to moving to a vote on this legislation? Seeing none, we'll move to a vote and get that posted in the Teams. Thank you all very much. Feels like a fun time.
I'm saying. It's fine.
All right, that vote is now posted. Do you agree with Senate Bill 23-68? Yes, if you do, no, if you do not, and abstain to stay out of the discussion. Our quorum has now been adjusted to 30 with the introduction of new senators, but hopefully we shouldn't have any trouble meeting that. All right, is there anyone who has not yet voted on this matter that wishes to do so? Seeing none, I will close this vote. All right, with a vote of 34 in the affirmative, 0 in the negative, and 0 abstentions, this legislation clearly passes. All right. And with that, we'll go to the last item on our agenda, which is a bill to reduce duplication and organized funding regulations. And Chris, you'll be presenting on that. How much time would you like?
Give me 10 just in case, it'll probably take less.
Okay. 10 minutes, whenever you're ready. And
Right.
do you want to pull the legislation up?
Yes, which one is it? There
It
it
should
is.
be Bill 60. Yep, perfect.
Okay, that works. So I was going, oh, sure.
Oh, Holly? Oh,
Can I zoom in a bit? Yeah, sure. Is that all right? Right. So I was going through the Constitution to take a look at some regulations we probably don't need anymore. But I noticed at the time that it's set out in a way that is very confusing, both for clubs who want to get funding from the Senate and for senators who want to change the funding rules. So the biggest part of this here is that currently the regulations in the Senate Constitution are reproduced both in the organization compliance policy and the regulations on funding usage, which are both part of the budget code, and both are enforced against student organizations. But for some reason, everything is repeated twice. And I thought that was odd. The second part here is the bigger section of the two, the regulations on funding usage. Those were, at the time I looked at this, completely like unorganized. I think on the second page of them, you can find like a prohibited use for funding into a Senate oversight policy, into the open meeting policy for any organization that receives funding from us. So I thought that made it really hard to understand what our rules are. So this bill has two main purposes. First of all, it just gets rid of the organization compliance policy altogether because, like I said, all the regulations in there are also listed in a separate section, and both sections are being enforced right now. And the second part here, the longest part, just rewriting the entire article to so you'll see here section 5 prohibited uses. Now everything that clubs can't use their funding for is in one section. All of the Senate oversight policies are in another section. The required policies for funded groups like the open meeting policy. And I received some concerns in the Student Rights and Affairs Council. And I can say that I've looked over this bill like 4 times. I've also sent it to the chair of the Finance Council, the student body vice president, and the honorable freshman senator, Mr. Barnes. And none of them were able to find any material or substantive differences between the regulations listed in this bill and what is currently listed in the Constitution. So if any of you have questions, I'd be happy to pull up the current Constitution and show you where each of these comes from. But other than that, I just think this bill is a straightforward way to make our funding process more accessible for clubs. Go ahead, Kevin.
Kevin, you had a question?
Yes, so just to clarify, this bill makes no substantive change to the way we give funding out as of now.
Correct. No substantive change, no material change. If you can find another synonym, it won't be that either.
All
Any other
right.
questions? Holly?
I'll provide a quick point of information, and then I assume that's a motion to vote from Holly. Just in regards to the budget code and the Student Senate Constitution, this is actually the only segment of the Constitution that was literally copy pasted from SSRR. And so it's definitely a section that needed some love because we, didn't want to touch financial regulations as it came to like that year because it would have, unearthed things like in terms of like exemptions that could have been like something untenable in terms of replacing it for the Constitution. So this allows us to simplify those regulations in a way that I think is easy for students to read.
Oh, yeah. And by the way, when I was talking about it being unorganized, that wasn't like to cast shade on the previous Senate executives. I understand the Constitution grows organically.
All right, motion to vote from Holly. All right, second from Bander. And is there anyone who objects to moving to a vote on Bill 60? All right, seeing none, we'll get that posted in the chat.
I don't understand how to turn this off. Sorry. Oh, yeah, that's great. Thank you.
Okay, that vote has now been posted. Do you agree with Senate Bill 2023-60? Yes, if you do. No, if you do not, abstain to stay out of the discussions. This requires a 2/3 vote to pass, but it looks like it will pass handily. And is Farzad here? He left. Okay. All right, is there anyone else who has not yet voted on this matter that has the ability to do so? All right, seeing none, I will move to close this vote. And with a vote of 35 in the affirmative, 0 in the negative, and 0 abstentions, this legislation clearly passes. Congratulations to Senator Chris Raethel for passing their first bill. All right, now, do we have any announcements on the floor from anyone? Motion to adjourn from Holly. See a second from Blake. All right, is there anyone who objects? Didn't think so. We are adjourned.
Have a safe spring break, everyone. Be the responsible student leaders we all are.
And remember, for spring break legislation writing, Friday is the deadline.
I've heard people were out for like 4 days. Thank you very much. Yeah, seeing the dogs and the rabbit again.
Not like school. No. There's no good in being. So I just think about. So
Angela? All right. Good time now? And so. Really hard thing I had. Yeah, you know, Yeah, I mean, it's always like we're trying to fund that.
And then.